Wife 28 female can't put her phone down for anything, and I 31 male am not sure how to deal with it anymore. I used to not care how frequently she uses her phone or plays games, but sometimes it feels like I literally have to fight for her attention. And I'll be honest, it's draining and makes me want to not bother spending any time with her. Most of the time, I'll just make jokes about how I need to be more interesting and so on. And other times I'll actually just stop talking until she puts her phone down. She does it everywhere: dates, walks, in the car, pretty much immediately after sex whenever that happens. But last night, I admittedly exploded a bit. For the better part of this year, I've been getting up early to work on a little side project, and I've been doing this because she's not a morning person, and it gave me more time after work to spend time with her. Advice my dad gave me. I ended up finishing it yesterday and was really excited to show her. I went upstairs to ask if she was busy, and she said she was only playing a game, so she'll come check it out. Without going too much into it, the side project was essentially a 12-minute video. I pulled it up on the TV, and maybe 20 seconds into the video, I heard her sort of snicker. I looked over, and she was on her phone typing a message back to her group chat. So I turned the TV off and left the room. She started complaining that she was watching it and trying to call me back to the living room, and eventually followed me upstairs and said she was just quickly checking something. I just looked at her and sort of shouted, "I'm just so tired of fighting for more than 10 seconds of your attention. You knew how hard I've been working on that, and you couldn't put your ducking phone down for even a minute." She turned her phone off and put it on the dresser and said she'd watch it, but honestly she wouldn't have done that unless I said something. I told her if she thought the project I've been working on was boring, then I'd rather her just say that than pretend to show any interest in it, which she got pretty offended by, because she was the one who encouraged me to even do it in the first place, which is what has me upset to begin with, since I know people will point to cheating. I don't believe this is the case. We both know each other's passwords and everything, and earlier in the year, I did get the suspicion that something was going on because of how she was acting, so I point blank explained this and asked to go through her phone. I don't think she was doing anything and have no real reason to think she's lying. I genuinely think she just has an addiction. I really don't know what to do. On one hand, I can't say no phones around me because that will be deemed controlling behavior. But on the other hand, I really shouldn't have to constantly fight a stupid ducking box for 12 minutes of attention. What exactly am I supposed to do her? I'm at my wit's end. Too long didn't read. Wife is always on phone. Tried showing her a project I've worked all year on that was important to me, and she just got on her phone immediately. I'm not sure how else to communicate. I'd like some actual, proper attention and need assistance. You start small. No phones while eating at the table or at a restaurant. No phones while watching a movie together, or else just turn off the TV. This is what my husband and I do. If a phone is out during these times, then there is the expectation that the other person is involved in whatever text conversation is going on. Sometimes an email or text comes through, and one of us will absent-mindedly go to that. We've both agreed to call the other person out on it in that moment, because we both respect each other. This is usually enough to redirect the attention. At first, we were calling each other out all the time, but eventually, we both learned how to ignore our phones during those moments. So my husband and I have recently been dealing with this problem in our relationship. I'm the phone abuser, just like your wife, and he's been fighting for my attention. He blew up on my, like you did with your wife, and it made me see just how upset me using my phone is to him. I had to come to the realization that I was way overusing my phone, and I've been finding the appropriate times to use it. I want my husband to feel important in my life, and I don't want him to have to fight with me to feel attention. For me, it clicked that I would be so devastated if we ever got a divorce because of my phone use, so I started leaving my phone at home. When we go on walks he has his in case of an emergency, or when we go out to dinner I don't take it with. If we are sitting around at home watching a movie, my phone goes in a separate room on silent, so it's out of sight out of mind. There is appropriate times to use my phone, but it's not 100% of the time. And it took my husband yelling at me for me to understand. and it really should have never gotten that far considering how often he brought it up as upsetting to him. I hope you guys figure it out, but your wife has a phone addiction, and it needs to be treated as an addiction. This is an addiction. Like any addiction. She'll claim she can stop anytime. She won't be able to discuss with her how this makes you feel. Point out how it is disrespectful and rude. Start small. No phones at the table. No phones while watching a movie. Work towards no phones while out walking. Unless taking a photo. It is not controlling to want your partner to be present in your relationship. I was addicted as well, and my partner talked to me about it. That he thought it was disturbing that I was always checking my phone. So we did it this way. No phone at the table. Or on a date. During a movie. When we are doing something together, etc, etc. And it really worked for us. So OP. Just come clean about. And if she says she doesn't have a problem, ask if you can point out every time she checks her phone in your presence when you are doing things together. For me that was a wake up call. Have you sat down with her and explained how you feel? It seems likely that her phone addiction, which most of us have to some extent, has raged out of all control without her even realizing how bad it has got or how much it is hurting you. It seems like you urgently need a proper detailed talk about it before it gets any worse. Have a think yourself about what are the most hurtful things and why, so that you can try to negotiate a set of phone boundaries which will work for you. I understand your worry about being seen as controlling, but you need to be willing to express clearly to your wife that you have a problem and be ready to negotiate with her what would make you feel properly seen and loved in the relationship. It feels like you shouldn't have to explain to a grown adult not to look at their phone while you are having a conversation or actively showing them something. But people just do sometimes lose all perspective when staring at the tiny glowy screen. The best solution needs to come from her. Choose a time where you are not upset and calm, and have a conversation with her. Tell her how you feel and ask her how it makes her feel, and if she feels she needs to make any changes. Any solution you or ultimatum you give will just be you forcing her. She needs to see the problem and decide if that is worth solving to stay in the relationship. Decide how far you're willing to go to solve this problem, willing to leave her over it eventually. Probably something you should tell her. And if you're both willing to work to solve it, then you're fine. Check back once a week or so. Update your emotions. Addiction or obsessive behavior can be controlled. Good luck. My previous comment mentioned changing you to we. If the conversation is centered around what she should change, it's less likely to go well. It doesn't matter if the problem is with her and not him. The goal isn't to point out that she's doing something wrong, and he isn't. The goal is to solve the problem, and it's okay if they share responsibility to fix it. It's always better that way in my experience. It takes humility. You do mention that they both need to be willing to solve it, but that should be evident from the first conversation. Also, an ultimatum for an issue this fixable is a terrible idea. If leaving her enters his mind over this before they have tried to fix it together, and especially if she knows he's had that thought already, it'll tarnish any chance of a restorative mindset. I would feel so emotionally unsafe if my partner gave me an ultimatum over this. Instead of, I'll leave if you don't change. There should be a feeling that they'll always help each other through tough times. That's considering the situation here. Of course it wouldn't apply to more serious ones. I hate phones. Outside of you blowing up, which was, understandably, full of resentment and making jokes about her phone usage, I don't see that you've had a serious convo with her about her phone usage. Outside of an upsetting phone moment, let her know how you feel. I feel like I don't have your attention when you're on your phone at dinner, in bed, on dates, and it's distracting. Ask for what you want. Can we do no phones at the table on dates? Remind her when she does it, hey, we are at dinner. Can you put your phone up? See how she responds. She may be embarrassed, surprised. If she fights it, decide how important this is. She should be receptive. This can change, but it's something you need to talk about with her outside of blowing up joking about it. I feel you. My wife started this years ago after getting into her MLM business that was really just a bunch of bored moms being horrible to each other over social media. If she was awake, her phone was in her face. It got so bad that I decided at one point to not speak to her first for anything. 3 weeks later I gathered my crap from the room while she was on her phone, and she didn't even notice, not having spoken to her literally that entire time, and went to another room to sleep because she had basically made me a single dad at that point, and I was going to bed after her and often getting up before her. It was 3 nights before she realized I hadn't slept in our room. We never recovered from that. I'd say if you care about this relationship and think it can work, sit her down now and kill this issue. Waiting will only make it worse. Good luck. I had a similar situation and my wife was later diagnosed with ADHD. Not sure if this has been ruled out, but her parents wouldn't believe that was a possibility, and it being untreated for so long has had some bad long-term impacts. You might want to ask her to consider speaking with someone. Yes, I get really restless having to focus long periods of time on something I'm only mildly interested in. So phone comes out and I surf Reddit or play puzzle games. Subtitles really help me focus. No idea why. We used to be avid board gamers and I could not sit still without having my phone out waiting for other people to take their turns. It was torturous for me. Having my phone out to engage and distract was important, especially when playing with people who took long times. I was always paying attention. I just needed to do something to distract the parts of my brain that turns into anxiety. I don't know anyways. We explained to my friends why I had my phone out. I still played and often won and participated in conversation. Research has shown that smartphone usage releases dopamine in the brain, the same function that causes them to get addicted to drugs. Most smartphones these days have timers you can set that will go off once you've used your phone for X amount of time. If she has an iPhone, consider having her look at her screen time app. The results might shock her into stopping. I know some people who spend 40 hours a week on their phone, equal to a full-time job, as others have suggested. Set boundaries as to when phones are allowed. The phone can't just be in her pocket and turned on silent. It needs to be in another room. She'll get antsy, but eventually she'll get used to it. I get separation anxiety from my phone. I also get really bored realizing how much time I actually have when I'm not looking at a screen. Consider doing the same, even if you're not addicted, so she doesn't feel like the burden is all on her. Maybe go on a date and leave the phones at home or in the glove compartment when you leave the car. My wife did this for a while, was always on her phone, was open about it. I could read her texts anytime. Nothing going on cheating wise, but she just wouldn't stop texting her friends. During dinner, time with kids, talking to me, every few minutes, she'd pull out her phone and ignore us. I asked her to stop. She said it wasn't that bad. I got upset. She told me to stop being a baby about it, so I'd just leave. When the phone would come out, we'd be in mid-conversation. She'd get a text, pull out her phone and I'd just walk away. She'd look up and I'd be gone. She'd follow me around the house trying to engage. That annoyed her, but she still thought I was just being rude. When she would do it in front of the kids, I'd go do something different with them. She'd look up and we'd be off doing something else. That really made her mad and she thought I was just being a jerk. Until one day, she looked up from her phone and we had been gone for half an hour getting ice cream and she hadn't noticed. We were all playing together as a family and she hadn't even noticed me packing up the kids and leaving. Then she admitted it had gone too far and stopped. That's what worked for me. Maybe it would work for you. Maybe ask her why she feels the need to be on her phone stimulates so much. I realized I was on my phone too much a few years ago. My husband asked me why, and I didn't have an answer. I thought about it and kept my phone off the next day. Turns out I took 3 naps while it was off. I was just so exhausted constantly that I was using my phone stimulus to keep me awake. And I went to a doctor and was diagnosed with a sleep disorder. I was able to get some medicine to help me sleep more efficiently, and I'm able to stay off my phone. Try not to jump to conclusions. I'm so sorry that your wife didn't even put her phone away to watch the project when it was important to you, and she was the one who encouraged you to do the project. I hate armchair diagnosing, but I have ADHD, I'm on my phone pretty much constantly throughout the day, using different apps. It keeps my hands busy and my brain busy when I'm multitasking. I'll even scroll through social media whilst watching a TV show sometimes. I play games on my phone before bed. I'll use my phone whilst watching a film with family too. That being said, I don't use my phone at dinner times with family, and I don't like using it when I'm hanging out with friends or having a conversation with anyone. This is a silly question, but have you and your wife discussed what might be causing the phone addiction? I might be wrong, but it doesn't seem that it's because you're not interesting as you joked, but maybe that your wife feels the need to multitask. She may not even realize that she's doing it. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing for more videos.